everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to assemble the Anouk bodysuit. This is a pretty simple bodysuit with some basic style lines. And I'm going to show you just quickly how to line the cups in a single step and then how to do the rest of the assembly in elastic. So I've already cut out all of my pieces. So I'm starting with the bust area. So I've got my front piece cut out here, and I've got both sides placed together. And I'm just going to start by taking my lining, which I've cut out of stretch mesh. I'm going to take both pieces and line them up. And I'm just going to place them over top like this. So the right sides of the lining are together and the right sides of my exterior fabric are together. And I'm going to serge all of my seams. If you don't have a serger, you can just use a narrow zigzag stitch on your sewing machine. So when we open this up, you can see our seam allowance here gets hidden between our layers, and we're doing our lining and exterior in one step. I do it this way because it stops your lining from slipping, so your lining and your exterior layer almost act as one. And it's just quicker and you get a nice neat seam. You don't want a lot of bulk in your and the seams around your bust. So I'm going to take my side front. At this point you might want to baste this together. So just using a long stitch on your sewing machine, you might want to just anchor that in place, but I'm going to skip that step. So I've just lined up my curved bust seam here, and I'm going to flip it over and take one of the layers of my lining. Oh my goodness, one of the layers of my lining. And with the right sides of the lining together, I'm going to line those up. So the right sides of my exterior fabric are facing and the right sides of my lining are facing. And I'm going to stitch through all these layers on my serger. So you can see I just kind of line everything up as I go, and this way I don't need to use any pins while I'm using my serger. But if you are concerned, or you're a newer sewer, or you just like to be extra cautious, I would go ahead and baste the exterior fabric on first, and then you could do the lining afterwards. And of course you can use pins. So same as before, when we open this up, there, so that's our exterior seam, and on the inside, our seam allowance is hidden between the two layers. So I'm going to do the same thing on this opposite side. So starting with my exterior layer, right sides together, and then lining side. The lining goes right side together. So I'm sandwiching my front piece between the two layers. There. So that is a really quick way to get your lining and your exterior sewn all in one step, and it prevents the lining from slipping during wear. So at this point we can add our back piece. So the back piece looks like this. It's got kind of a scoop along the back, and I just put these right side together. And I'm going to just stitch through all the layers. So just line those up. You can pin it here. I'm just going to run it through my sewing machine, or sorry, my serger. I'm using a cotton lycra jersey, and it's got a lot of four-way stretch, so I want to make sure that my seams are nice and stretchy. Same thing on this side, just lining up my side seams, stitching through my exterior and lining, so just treating that side cup, lining, and exterior as one piece. And there we go. Turn that right side out. And that's the top of our bodysuit. So at this point, I'm assembling the lower half of the bodysuit. So I've just placed my front bodysuit over top of the back, and I've already done my one side seam, and I'm just gonna go ahead and do the other side seam. So it's really simple. You're just gonna line up your edges and stitch them together using a 1/2 inch seam allowance. So if you're using a serger, you will trim some off. If you're using a straight stitch, just, a narrow zigzag stitch on your sewing machine, just follow the 1/2 inch seam allowance gauge. Okay, so it's essentially like a pair of high-waist underwear at this point. I'm going to turn these right side out. There we go. And I'm going to take my top and I'm going to pin these together. So match up the side seams. I just push all my seams towards the back. Line those up. Put a little pin in there. Then the first notch should align with the bust seam. You may need to kind of gently ease it together. Excuse me. And just keep pinning it along. So you wind up with something that looks like this. So the right side of your upper bodysuit is facing the right side of the lower bodysuit. And I'm just going to start at a side seam, and I'm going to use my serger again. So for this seam, I actually normally like to use my a zigzag stitch on my regular sewing machine, just because I find it's a little more precise for me. But I'm going to demonstrate with my serger today. Just remember to remove any pins. You do not want to serge over pins. So there it is, stitched on with my serger, and when we flip that up, we basically have our entire bodysuit assembled. So at this point, we're ready to baste on our little gusset lining and get on with our straps and elastic. So I've got my little gusset lining piece here. It's pretty small. and I've just cut it out of some plain jersey, and I'm going to just serge along this upper edge just to finish that edge. And then at this point, you can just baste it right onto the wrong side of that gusset. So I'm going to apply fold over elastic around the leg line and the neckline of the bodysuit. So I'm just working with some black satiny fold over elastic, and I'm going to start at the gusset of the front on the wrong side of the garment. So I've switched over to my regular sewing machine, and I'm using a zigzag stitch. So I'm very gently putting a little bit of tension on my elastic. In this pattern, you don't want to gather or pull your elastic too tight. You just want to create a snug edge. So there's my 1/2 done. At this point, I'm just going to trim back the fabric. Just trim it so it's cut as close to your zigzag stitching line as possible. So you can use other types of elastic. You don't have to use fold over elastic. I just like fold over elastic because it comes in so many different colors and it's really easy to apply. So now that we've trimmed that back, we can fold it around to the right side. So just fold the elastic along the fold line, and using a zigzag stitch still, just going to top stitch that in place, basically like you would do a binding. So if you've sewn a lot of my patterns, the technique is the exact same. The only time applying elastic really changes is when you're sewing a pattern that's developed for wovens, like my Jane panties pattern. That one you'll need to pull the elastic quite a bit more than any of my patterns for woven fabric, or sorry, for knit fabrics. I would finish the opposite leg line in the exact same way. I'm just going to move along to the neckline now. So I'm going to start with the V neckline. So flipping it over to the inside. I'm going to start at that point above the bust. And when you get to that center front seam, sink your needle down into the fabric right on that seam line, lift your presser foot, pivot the garment around, and then continue on your way, and that will help you keep a sharp edge, sorry, a sharp corner. There it is from the right side, and I'm going to trim back my fabric again. So there it is. Now I can fold my elastic over and top stitch it down. So again, with this center front seam, I'm going gonna sink my needle down, lift my foot, pivot, and then continue around. So there's my neckline. So the next step is to finish around this underarm edge. So same as before, working on the inside of your fabric and starting at this, I'm starting at this point above the bust. And I'm going to place my fold over elastic so it extends beyond by about 1 inch. Do a little back tack in place. Trim back your excess fabric. So there you can see I've got this tail here. So same as before, fold it around, down that fold line, and top stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and fast forward a bit. I'm going to finish this opposite edge, and then I'm going to finish this scooped neckline with my fold over elastic. And again, when you're doing your scooped back neckline, just leave a 1-inch tab of fold over elastic extending over the top here, just like we did on the sides. I finished all of the elastic edging along the leg line and the neckline. So here's the back. You can see I've left these long tails over the back and the front here. And at this point, I'm just gonna add some elastic along this underbust line. So I'm working with some wider, just regular band elastic. It's got a plush side and a decorative edge. And I'm going to just fold this down. So fold it down kind of like how when we sewed this top part onto the bottom. And I'm going to start just at one of the side seams. And I'm going to stitch my band elastic onto my seam allowance without going over. I'm going to use a zigzag stitch. So I'm lining the edge of my band elastic with the edge of my stitching line. And the plush side of my elastic is facing up. So I'm just anchoring it down here, and now I'm going to gently pull to get a nice snug fit under the bust. You can use any width of band elastic. I'm making this one for myself, and I just have a preference of this larger or this wider band elastic. But 1/2 inch is fine as well. Or you can omit it completely. I just have mom boobs and I need the underbust support. So I'm going to overlap these, overlap your ends at your side seam, do a little back tack, lift up my foot, I'm going to move this down, and I'm going to just join them together with a tight zigzag stitch. Nothing fancy. I'm just going back and forth to make sure it's nice and secure. And then I'm gonna cut that back really close. There we go. So at this point you have the choice of top stitching this down like you would kind of do on any bra. However, you would top stitch it down towards the body side of the bodysuit. But I'm just going to leave it like that, kind of like a shelf bra elastic. And from there we can do our snap closure. So you don't have to add snaps. If you want, you could sew them just like a regular pair of panties. So before you attach your top to the bottoms and before you sew your side seams, you could sew your gusset seam just like you would with any of my other panty patterns, and then do your leg elastic, then do your side seams, and then attach it to your top. But here I'm going to show you how to do snap tape. I like to work with this snap tape. I just get it at my regular Fabricland. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut it so that it's about the same length as my bodysuit. So let's see here. So I've cut out both pieces at the same time, and I've cut it out so that there's a bit of seam allowance on either side of the snaps. You need a little bit of space there. So I'm starting with my front here, and I'm just going to place this on top along the edge, and I'm going to stitch down here. I normally would put on a zipper foot, but right now I'm just going to move my foot, or my needle, over to the left. And make sure you switch over to a straight stitch. Or sorry, I'm going to move my needle to the right. If you don't have access to snap tape, you can just fold this under, like hem it, and then hand sew on snaps, or use a setter to put your snaps on. So that's the front, and then I'm just going to fold it back like this towards the inside, and I'm going to stitch along here. So there's the front gusset with the snap tape. And then basically you're going to do the same thing on the back gusset, but we just do it the opposite way around. So I'm just going to make sure. Okay. So I'm just going to lay it like this along the inside of the garment, just along that straight gusset edge. And just like before, I'm just going to stitch it on. So I just get snap tape at my local Fabricland. They always seem to stock it, but I know that, I'm pretty sure anyways, I'm pretty sure that, I think Bra Maker Supply has it. And I know that my local Lens Mills also has it. Okay, so this one is causing me some problems. I should have switched to my zipper foot. I'm being lazy. Alright, exactly the same as before, except this time we're doing it the opposite way around. Just flip it up towards the right side of the garment. And straight stitch in place. Just make sure you do a nice back tack at the beginning and end. Oh my goodness. This is the messiest snap tape I've ever sewn in my life. So we still need to finish these edges here because the snap tape is still raw here and starting to fray. So I normally just do a really tight zigzag stitch and just go over that edge really carefully. Just be very careful that you don't stitch into your snaps because it will break your needle. But for the meantime, I'm just going to leave it like this. You can also singe the edges. This this snap tape I'm using is like a nylon or a polyester, so it melts. You can just singe it with a lighter. The only thing I don't like about that is it tends to get scratchy. So that's our crotch seam now. It's got a nice finish on the inside and on the outside, and it's easy to get in and out of. I know I've been wearing a lot of like one-piece jumpsuits and rompers so far this spring, and I love them, except I hate that I have to get completely undressed to go to the bathroom. So at this point we're ready for straps, and I'm just going to do a regular crisscross strap on this. So I'm going to go ahead and assemble my straps. If you've never assembled straps before, I do have a video on how to do that, but I'm just going to fast forward and show you how to attach them. Alright, I've prepared my straps. So I've got two adjustable straps here, just out of 1/2" strap elastic. And I'm going to flip them so that the shiny side of my elastic is facing the right side of my garment. And I'm going to stitch it to this little fold over elastic tail. So just using a straight stitch, I'm just going to stitch it right on. So I'm stitching as close to where the fold over elastic joins the garment as I can without going over. Because when we flip it around, I'll show you how it should look. So it's stitched on here, and then when I flip it so that the elastic points down and my strap starts extending, there's just a nice join here. And then I'm going to top stitch with a zigzag stitch straight across to anchor it in place. So I just do a narrow, tight zigzag. Just make sure to back tack. And that creates a nice strong join. And then I just trim back close to your stitching. And that's your first strap. So I've got this ring on the other side. I'm going to bring it around to the opposite side on the back because I want my straps to crisscross. And I just threaded that fold over elastic tail through the ring. And just like I did previously, I'm just going to use a tight zigzag stitch to stitch that in place. Whoops. So I go back and forth over that area a couple of times. And same thing, just trim back your excess. And that's it. That's how you attach the straps. So I'm gonna just finish this up, finish up my strap, and then I'm going to be done. I hope you found that helpful, and I hope you enjoy my pattern. Thanks so much for watching.